Welcome, everyone, to the Public Safety and Veterans Subcommittee. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Call to the public. Any cards from the public? We have no cards, so we'll go to item number 3. This is the Arizona Department of Correctional Maricopa County's Reentry Center.
And this may be our last meeting with Chief Yonner with the Public Safety Subcommittee. And it looks like we have Chief Williams as well.
All right.
So welcome to both.
It's all yours.
Good morning. The reason we're here today is just to provide you with an update on a new facility that joined us in the city of Phoenix, and it's up in the Northwest Valley, the Adobe Mountain Correction Center. And basically, the population of Adobe Mountain Juvenile Correction Center has declined in the last several years. So Department of Corrections presented housing of parolees from DOC at this facility. So they modified it. They presented this in front of the governor's office and legislators, and they opened this facility on July 18th of 2016. It is not a lockdown facility. It's basically the same structure as a halfway house. So once inmates serve about 85% of their sentence, they are permitted to go into this structured environment. And it's a halfway house to get them reacclimated back to society. And again, it's not a lockdown facility. However, there are rules to it. It does have a curfew. The goal is a 90-day program where they go into the facility, they sleep there, and then during the daytime they go out and acquire their identification, look for housing, look for jobs, and again, start to get reacclimated. And DOC has the resources there to try to help this population to get reacclimated back to society.
I have one card. Should we listen to the...
Can I make a
Absolutely.
statement first? Because this has been extremely problematic. It has brought a lot of homeless people into the area. There is very little public transportation in that area. And homeless population doesn't have access to many ways. And I think what was the most aggravating at all is the DOC, although they claim to have sent everyone on the council a notification letter that this was going to occur, I have yet to find anybody on the 11th floor or the police department who received that letter. So when I found out about it, it was about 10 days prior to them opening. And the neighborhood is absolutely opposed. The shopping center across the street is having all kinds of problems. The park and ride has been experiencing problems. And I know I wrote to the governor, asked him, because we have a major employment center across the street next to this shopping center. That's where USAA and Cigna, and there are thousands of employees there with the potential of another mid-rise going in there and a 300 residential development occurring. This is not an encouragement to do so, and so I've been very concerned. I will say the police have been very responsive. They have worked with the shopping center to post no trespassing signs. This is kind of a first. They've never had this type of experience before. And I just want to thank you, because I know you have attended the meetings and been very involved and continue to be involved and monitor this situation. But I do know we have one of the leaders in the neighborhood here, and I think that's her part. But I just wanted to, I can say it, you probably can't, and let you know what the real situation was.
Thank you, Councilmember. Ann O'Brien, come on down.
There's a microphone over there.
Thank you all for allowing me to speak this morning. I am Ann O'Brien, and I live in the neighborhood just a little less than a mile and a half from where the center was opened. I would like to thank the Phoenix Police Department, because they are the ones who found out about it when all the sex offenders started registering there over the summer. So a big kudos to Sergeant Francis, as well as to Assistant Chief Roberts for making the decision to expand the sex offender notification process beyond the 2 blocks, because there are no homes within the 2-block area, but there are plenty of schools and neighborhoods a little farther out. We will tell you that there are 4 programs there that include technical violator housing, an intensive drug treatment housing, without placement or homeless offender housing. They have, they do have a curfew, but other than that, they don't have a lot of restrictions when on what they're doing between 5 a.m. and 8 p.m., which is the latest curfew for these folks. So we are seeing, we have an increased knowledge of or idea of what's going on in our community. So we have more folks calling about strange things that we see. The last program that they have is also another 650 folks who are on probation who are doing what they call day reporting into their probation officers, which DOC has brought into there from an administrative perspective. So our neighborhood is extremely concerned. There are over 5,200 community members in a Facebook group that are monitoring this. What we need to be able to communicate to them is what to expect when they call Crime Stop or 911 when they have concerns. As early as this morning, there was an attempted break-in, and unfortunately the response time was 10 minutes from the police department this morning, as well as some concerns about when we call Crime Stop, what kind of response or should we be receiving from the Phoenix Police Department. If you could help us understand that so we can communicate out to our folks what steps they need to take. And we really would just like to continue to have the City of Phoenix support in fighting this because it's not in the right area. The public transportation is not there. The affordable housing is not there. And quite frankly, we're not really certain that the Department of Corrections has the right programs in there to help these folks. It's a halfway house, really is what it is, as opposed to the programs that Governor Ducey wanted to institute, which was the technical violators and to deal with substance abuse, which 77% of our inmates have issues with. So thank you again to the police department. Assistant Chief Mary Roberts has been at many meetings, and I know they're working diligently to work with our community, but any other communications would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a question. So, Assistant Chief, have all the sex offenders been removed from the facility?
No, sir. There's less than 20 of that population still at the center, but they're being transitioned out. And no additional sex offenders will be added to that center.
And where are they being relocated to?
I don't know, sir.
So we're just kicking them out of the
We're
facility?
not.
or-
Department of Corrections is relocating them. So they're finding adequate housing for them that meets the parameters regarding their registration.
The problem I have with that is that once you're released from prison, you're dropped off at Cass, and then basically you're left on the streets, and you're roaming downtown Phoenix or historic neighborhoods, and basically District 7 and 8. And there's a problem. And these, actually 4 also, right? And my problem is that we need to have some kind of shared program throughout, not just the city of Phoenix taking all the homeless in, but the other cities. We have Tempe, we have Glendale, we have Avondale, we have all these other cities that surround the city of Phoenix, but we end up with all the homeless individuals. We have a great program. CAS is designed for about 400 plus individuals. We're catering almost 1,000 plus. And so it's understaffed and it's overloaded with participants. So we really need to find a way, the city of Phoenix, to make sure that other cities are taking their fair share when it comes to the homeless situation. The other thing is that I don't think it's fair that all the sex offenders are, because they don't have an address, they don't want to put down their family's address as their permanent address, that they're being dumped, and I mean dumped, right downtown Phoenix because they're using Cass as the address. Back when Michael Johnson and myself were on the council, we made sure that no sex offenders or none of our funding for the city of Phoenix going to CAS were available to sex offenders. So there's no sex offenders at CAS right now, or there shouldn't be. So they can't use that address legally to drop off sex offenders because they're not allowed on that campus. So I think we, as a city of Phoenix, really need to look into the correction department and seeing where they're actually dropping off these sex offenders after they serve their time. And at the same time, create some type of program like this. I really take my hats off to the individuals that created this program. It's a way to transition these individuals into the community. And don't get me wrong, we need more programs like this, but we need to find the right fit and the right place that this can happen. The other problem I have is we don't have enough of these programs. We have Rescue Mission, we have St. Vincent de Paul, we have all those individuals that are helping with the homeless individuals. But I think we need to work a little bit closer with these agencies and organizations and nonprofits, but once again, advocate other cities to take their fair share.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Councilwoman?
Councilman Waring and I have attended community meetings, talking with DOC officials, as well as the state legislators that represent that area. And we have been very adamant and very clear that relocation does not mean City of Phoenix. Because the last thing we need is for this to just be plopped downtown. I know the problems that you have had, so I just wanted you to be aware, and the police have been very supportive. And the only reason we discovered the sex offenders were all out there is they all started using that address.
Right.
And the sergeant said, what? We have 25 at the same address? And that's how we found out about this entire project. So I adamantly agree with you, and I think it's very important we work with the legislature and the governor's office, continue to relocate it to a more appropriate place. I'm not saying what they're doing is bad, it's just in the wrong pew.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor?
The council completed strategic planning, and one of the things we spoke about was that the city of Phoenix should not be the social services provider for all of Maricopa County or Arizona. It's not fair to our officers who already have enough on our plate. It's not fair to our residents, many of whom have a lower average income than some of the people in other parts of our county. And so that's something that I think we all agree that other communities need to step up as well and try to help us find solutions. And it's what we've spoken about this topic at earlier council meetings, and what experts have told us is that people are more likely to get better outcomes if they have services and can live near the communities where they grew up, where they have family ties. And so there need to be resources in all of the communities and not just in Phoenix, but it does feel disproportionately as if our community is always asked to step up. So I represent the area around Van Buren and 24th Street, which has the largest facility for sex offenders. But we also have many other corridors in the community where I hear regularly from constituents. They receive a pamphlet every time a sex offender moves to their neighborhood, and they will greet me with a stack of pamphlets and say, what are you doing about this? We don't have services in our neighborhood. Why always us? And part of it is affordable housing, and it's certainly a source of pride that we do have affordable housing in our community, but we do need services, as my colleagues have effectively argued. And I think it might be worth inviting the Department of Corrections to come and visit us and give us an update on what they're doing to make sure that there are services throughout Arizona and not just in Phoenix. Certainly we are lucky to be the largest city and capital city, but we also ought to do our part to make sure that there are services everywhere. We've been working with the State Department of Health, which operates the facility, because there were people breaking out into the neighborhood. Not necessarily sex offenders, but they had some real security challenges, and the Phoenix Police Department has also been involved with that. And I think for many years, our legislative agenda has asked for more support so that they can do the work they need in Phoenix, but they also need to have resources to do that work outside of Phoenix. And this continues to be a challenge. We don't want to move the problem, we want to solve the problem. And so appreciate my colleagues' leadership, but we do not want it to be at the expense of another part of the city of Phoenix. We want people to get good outcomes and be able to go to the communities from which they came, which in this case needs to be all over the state of Arizona.
Can I ask? Where are the most successful, or in our area, the most successful similar types of programs within our state about this type of programming that recidivism? Do we have a percentage? Are we aware? Are we keeping data on how these programs, how effective they are, and how they are the impact it has on the community?
No, this is something that Department of Corrections has, and normally it's small halfway houses, and it's a small number, the population in these houses. What's so unique about this facility, it's a mass amount. It's up to 100 persons in one facility. So that's the unique challenges that we, as a police department and the community, are facing, because we've never,
Right.
that's not a halfway house as we know it and that we're experienced with. And again, Department of Corrections provides that resources and reacclimation back to society.
There's also there's also a center that's in Tucson that's operating basically under the same program. And I did want to make sure we at least told you what it is that we're doing in response to it. As Chief Roberts mentioned, we expanded our notification area to make sure that we let the residents that were in proximity of this facility know. We have liaison with the community groups. We're going to the meetings to advise them of what's occurring. We're partnering with the business for the no trespassing to make sure that they know what's in the neighborhood. This Friday, Commander Robinson and our resource lieutenant from the Cactus Park Precinct are actually going to meet with the folks at the facility so that we can get a bird's eye view of what actually is going on there. We're also going to try and get some information on the offenders that are there as far as who they are and get a client list, for lack of a better word. But keep in mind that it's a transitory population, so that they are not there forever. So we're consistently getting a turnover there, but we still would like to know who is there so that we have an idea of who's staying in our neighborhoods.
Any other questions? I just really want to thank our Phoenix Police Department for acting so quick on this. Also, all those nonprofits and organizations that are out there helping through this transition of individuals exiting prison and going back into society. I think it's such an important mission that we actually help individuals, especially the sex offenders, transition into it and basically get the right counseling and the opportunity to find a job and being able to have a roof over their heads. But we need to find the right solution, working together. And I call it the Team Phoenix approach, where we bring everyone together. So hopefully the community, the organizations, and the Phoenix Police Department, we can all come together to find a solution for this in the future. Thank you. With that, we're on item number 4. That's animal hoarding. Basically, we had an ordinance that was passed, and just this whole conversation is about some clarification and making sure that we understand the component of hoarding in this ordinance.
Is that better? Kind of, sort of. I could just, it says it's on. No, I'm good. Okay. I did- Is that better? Can you hear? There we go. Now it's a little loud. Good morning, Councilman Nowakowski, members of the subcommittee. My name is Vicki Hill. I'm here with Jessica Breedlove. And we brought before you an ordinance that is makes it a Class 1 misdemeanor to hoard animals. Basically, what it says is that if a person has 10 or more animals and they're treated in a substandard way, they can be found guilty of this crime. What the court would look at in deciding whether they were treated in a substandard way are things like abandonment, unsanitary conditions, overcrowding, not feeding them appropriately, not having appropriate water. And if a person were found guilty, they would be ordered to have a mental health evaluation. They would also be ordered to pay for the cost of the animal's care. A court could order periodic property inspections, and they could prohibit a person from owning animals in the future. This goes along with our animal cruelty ordinance that we already have. It's just another tool in our belt. And when you look across the country, you see that animal hoarding is not unique to Phoenix. It's across the country, and it's problematic. Individuals actually feel like they are helping the animals, but in reality, the animals often end up with injuries or not being fed, and the cost to care for those animals or rehabilitate them, if they can be rehabilitated, is large. So with that, we're seeking your direction, ideas, questions that you might have.
Councilmember Williams?
Thank you. Mr. Chair, if you recall, we had a task force on this several years ago. And I know the subcommittee heard the hoarding, and we thought had been passed at council and was on the books, and recently, during an animal investigation, we discovered it was not. So it's one of the reasons we brought it back. And I asked them to change. Originally, we had dogs and cats, but 3 recent hoarding cases, one was over 100 sheep, one an acre, one was horses, and the other, well, we had a dog one too. So, oh, and rabbits. We've had 4 recent hoarding cases, and it became very clear to the investigators that this would really help them in the process, because these people need to be recognized that they may have serious issues of their own, and to protect the animals. So I thank staff for taking this, beefing up the language, and I truly support this. And I make a motion to approve it.
And I'll second that.
Wonderful, thank you. Thank you to Councilwoman Williams for your continued leadership on behalf of animals and animal safety. Just had a couple quick questions. What type of training would we need to provide to our prosecutors and police officers to make sure? I imagine that traditional police academy does not include the appropriate sanitation and nutrition standards for animals.
Councilman Nowakowski, Councilwoman Gallego, that's a good question. Luckily, we work very closely with our partners in the police department, and they have investigators that are really well-trained in this type of investigation. We also bring in people from the Arizona Humane Society, often as our expert witnesses, and we've been working with them over the years. One of the things that we've done within the office is allowed people prosecutors who have an interest in these types of cases to handle these cases specifically. And so they do already have a lot of training in this area. There are often CLEs that go on. There are other experts in the prosecutor community who put on continuing legal education. And so I feel right now they're very well poised to be able to handle these.
I'm continuously impressed by the breadth of the knowledge that we have at the City of Phoenix, so that's wonderful. I had an image in my mind of what companion animal meant that did not in fact include sheep. So could you help help me better understand what animals would be covered by this, or it would really be focused on the number of animals?
Correct. Councilman Nowakowski, Councilwoman Gallego, this would cover all animals.
Okay.
We do include a definition of animals, so I think technically the only one that we could think of that wouldn't be covered would be fish. Were there any others that we weren't really concerned about? Fish, but
Rodents as well.
oh, and rodents. That's true.
Rodents, rodents are specifically excluded from the definition. I apologize. Rodents are specifically excluded from the definition of animal for our animal cruelty statute. We didn't want to change that definition, since that's the same definition we use for animal cruelty, and I believe they are excluded per the state statute as well, and I believe that's for extermination purposes, and so that's why they have been excluded, and so they're excluded from our definition. So it's mammals, birds, reptiles, and amphibian. So the only thing we could think of is it doesn't include fish.
But if someone had 1,000 gerbils in terrible conditions, we would have other tools that we might be able to use to. Are gerbils rodents?
I don't think gerbils would be considered rodents.
No, I think they're
would they?
mammals.
Yeah.
I think they're mammals. So.
What we mainly see, as Councilwoman Williams said, are cats and dogs, but we've seen chickens and rabbits and sheep. Sheep was Yes, and horses, so. But generally, it's cats and dogs, I think, for the most part.
Wonderful, thank you. I'm glad we will have the tools to protect all community members, including our animal community members.
Any other questions? I wanted to thank the task force because the task force came up with so many great ideas. Also, the training of our officers. Each precinct actually has a kit to handle animal abuse and trained officers. So once again, I really want to thank those individuals that served on that task force to make sure that we had these ordinances and that we protect those animals that sometimes are being abused. Just for clarification, it's not saying that you can't have more than 10 animals or pets at your house. It's just about the cleanliness and the way that they are treated. So I just want to make that very clear that that's not the new ordinance that we're trying to pass. It's not saying you can't have 10 or more. It's just the way that the animals are treated, that they are treated with, that they're fed and that they have shelter and that they're living in a clean place.
Mr. Chair, I want to say thank you to Chief Yonner. When he became chief, he came in to meet with me, and he said, what's important? And I said, animal abuse and training of the officers. And he has held fast, and the officers were trained how to investigate cases. And I just want to tell you thank you. I also want to take the opportunity for our new chief that's sitting back there to make her aware how important this is to the community. So, but thank you very much.
And with that, we have a motion and we have a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. We're on item number 5, approval of towing RFP. It's all yours, Chief.
I'll start. Thank you. Good morning. I'm Denise Olson, CFO, and with me today I have, I guess for the last time, Chief Yonner with the Police Department. I also have Jim Campion, who's the Deputy Finance Director over procurement activities, and Jessica Rothschild, who's managing towing contracts in the Police Department. So we are here today to talk about towing. We came to the last subcommittee meeting. You all had questions, so hopefully we'll have all those questions answered today. And we hope for a recommendation to move forward with this procurement process. This chart shows that we have 4 towing zones. Again, we are a large, we cover about 500 square miles. Last year we had over 33,000 tows. So right now we have 4 tow zones. It is possible for a vendor to have more than 1 tow zone, as you can see here. So we have 3 contracts, 3 vendors for 4 tow zones. We also have towing fees per zone, and that's also shown on this chart. And Jessica is going to talk more about the fees and how we compare to other jurisdictions.
Actually, Mr. Chairman, members of the subcommittee, before Jessica gets started, she's run our program since 2006, so she's very familiar with how we did it with 1 vendor and then how we've done it with 4 vendors or 3 vendors in 4 zones. Last time we were here, you had some specific questions about DPS and comparatives with other cities and jurisdictions. So Jessica put together a little scenario to try to shed some light on that, and she'll explain that as she goes through it.
Good morning, members of the subcommittee. What I did is I did a comparison. Currently, we are in a competitive pricing model with the City of Phoenix. And so I found a recent accident that occurred near 35th Avenue and Roosevelt. And under the current competitive pricing model, the vehicle that was struck from behind, or the no-fault vehicle under the current model, would pay anywhere from $90 to $162.50. So what I did is I took the towing fee for that specific zone and figured a 5-day towing, 5 days of storage, and compared it, whether the vehicle was towed and had a 30-day hold versus a non-30-day hold. So this is the range that they would pay under our model. Under the fixed rate pricing model, for DPS and MCSO, you can see the difference in pricing. It ranges anywhere from $169 to $265 for each vehicle.
I also looked at neighboring jurisdictions to see how we compare to Scottsdale and Mesa. Scottsdale's towing fee is at a penny, and their daily storage at $32.50 per day. And Mesa and Glendale, you'll see that we are somewhere in between those prices. And then in the middle of that slide, you'll see the MCSO and DPS. Under the fixed rate price, it shows $75 and $69 for each one. That is per hour. So the vehicle owner will pay that amount for the hour for the hook fee only, plus they pay a mileage fee on top of that. Plus they will pay daily storage for however long the vehicle stays in storage. And the last portion of that slide shows Phoenix prices, the $15 to $29 hook fee, and this is for just a regular passenger size vehicle. The price goes up if it's a larger vehicle. And then the daily storage fee under Phoenix is $15 to $32.50 per day. Additional information that I gathered from DPS and MCSO. DPS is broken up into 3 districts. They are Central, East, and West, and they have up to 25 tow providers per district. So it's not one designated provider per district, they're on a rotation list. So they have 25 providers for one district, they call the first one, the second one, the third one on down the line. Compared to MCSO, they have 13 zones, 38 tow providers. They each indicated to me that their ability to provide oversight on the contracts, they don't have enough resources, it's very difficult for them to do that. Currently, DPS is looking to standardize their statewide procurement process and expressed interest in partnering with Phoenix to look at our pricing model and the way that we procure our contracts.
Talk about issuing the RFP with the current process. As you already know, we have the 4 towing zones. What this does is it maximizes the competition, allows the small local tow provider, gives them an opportunity to bid on one zone. A tow provider can bid on 1 or more zones under this current process. One of the things, the tow providers are required to have a storage facility in the zone they're contracted with, and this reduces the wait time for the officer, and that's critical. Chief Yonner was going to talk about wait times in the officers.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, members of the subcommittee, we're very happy with how things are now. We've experienced both one provider and the 4 zones, and things are going very well right now on the current configuration. And the reason being is when we talk about wait times, we had problems with wait times before. Our wait times are now between 11 and 14 minutes. And if that extends to 20 minutes or 25 minutes, it might not sound like a lot, but when you're talking 33,000 tows, and we, the police department, we own those tows. So when you get in a wreck, we're out there till the tow truck shows up. So that is time that is valuable for us, and it multiplies over the number of tows, the number of issues. So currently the wait times is huge with us, and we're doing a very good job. So we're very content with how things are going, and we hope to move in that direction in the future.
And as the chief mentioned, that's the recommendation, is to stay with the current process, 4 tow zones. Obviously, proposers can be awarded 1 or more zones. We feel this maximizes competition for the small and local firms. We do recommend a 3-year contract term with 1 2-year option to extend. And Vice Mayor, I did include other services as we talked about. Currently, tow providers do provide people that are broken down, tire changes, jump starts, lockouts, fuel refills. So we added that as an evaluation criteria. I did check with AAA. They are fine with that. They have to be have a membership to get those services. So in this case, many of them may not have a membership with AAA. So, and these are the evaluation criteria that we propose moving forward with for the RFP process. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Any questions? Or we have about 5 cards.
I'll wait till the card.
And as the cards come up, so we have a new category of other services that includes tire change, jump starts, lockout, fuel refill. And so that's when I would love to hear from people in the industry if that's something they think we ought to do. We, I think, have heard from the community that that would be helpful, but this is a new area for us. And so I had asked staff to check with people who are already providing the services to make sure we weren't competing, but it sounds like there's enough need to go around. But I think this is, because it's new, we'd particularly, if people have interest, I would be interested in feedback on if this makes sense. Are these the right services that people request, et cetera?
Any other questions prior to bringing up the speakers? Alrighty. I'd like to welcome up our council member, Claude Maddox. Come on up.
We'll let you take the microphone.
Can I do that? Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Claude Maddox, 300 West Clarendon, Malera Alvarez. First of all, before you start my time, a couple of things. Could I have a couple of points of personal privilege? I want to make some comments to, one, welcoming our new chief, and also thanking our former chief or existing chief. I'm not sure where you're at in that process.
Existing.
For the excellent jobs that you've done. The other thing is that I've had the honor of working with both of them as well as Chief Kurtenbach. I just wanted to make the point that I'm very proud that all of them have gone through the School of Hard Knocks known as Precinct 800, which is Maryvale. And they've all risen to the top of our command. So I'm very proud of that fact. A second point is that last weekend we had the Park Central Car Show. Everyone in the police department did an outstanding job. Chief Yonner, Mr. Dahoney, who facilitated a meeting between the community and the police department, Commander Veach, Commander Alexander, the car show event promoter, and the car clubs themselves. Everybody did a great job. Traffic went smoothly. None of the issues that had happened back in March. So I want to thank you very much for an excellent job in that regard as well. So that being said, I'm ready to testify. Staff's had quite a bit of time to talk about this from their perspective. I would like to give a bit of the industry perspective. It may take more than 2 minutes, so I would ask for extra time, please. And there are other members from the industry that are here who will be testifying as well. So I will do this as quickly as possible. Thank you. So as was mentioned at the meeting of September 27th, there were 3 items that were discussed. One had to do with fixed pricing. Another one had to do with single vendor, and another had to do with community involvement. I would like to address those individually. So on fixed pricing, first of all, fixed pricing does not eliminate competition. City and vendors both know how much their tows cost. It's easier to audit for the city, and vendors can better budget and forecast equipment needs and capital investments. And it's not depending on other parts of the towing business to support the towing contracts. Fixed price is not controlled by the vendor, as has been discussed. It's based on an existing DPS model. The pricing model has been used by both DPS and MCSO for over 10 years. It works. Eliminates competition based on lowest price. So you tend to get what you pay for when you go with lowest price. Competition is based on best qualified providers. Lower price promote lower wages, no benefits, poor or questionable quality employees, cost cutting on equipment and maintenance, and little capital investment. Fixed price allows evaluation to be based on qualifications, experience, capacity to perform, equipment, safety records, employee programs, and this is something I've heard the council mention many, many times. Living wage, equal pay, health benefits, retirement programs, and then community involvement, being able to give back to the community. Consistency in pricing eliminates variable prices around the city. It's consistency for the public, City of Phoenix, and vendors. One price model citywide. Consistency, efficiency, and uniformity for audits. Single vendor. It's about convenience, consistency, efficiency, and cost saving for public, city, and vendor. Single vendor is currently used in several cities around the valley. Allows economy of scale for the vendor. Less management and administrative costs for the city, 1 versus 4. Vendors each with different locations, different accounting methods. Audits can be more in depth. Single point of contact versus 3 or 4 different points of contact, one phone number for the public to locate a vehicle. Single pricing as opposed to current 3 different prices depending on where your tow occurred. Single vendor, especially if Phoenix retains the 4 districts, does not eliminate competition of small towing companies. And just for the record, I don't think anyone in the industry has said they are opposed to the 4 districts. It's just that the way the former RFP, and correct me if I'm wrong, the former RFP was set up, you could bid on all 4 districts. You couldn't win all 4 districts. All we're saying is if you're the best qualified, you can win on all 4 districts. And that would be what we're talking about, single vendor. But it's based on qualifications. Community involvement. It supports neighborhood efforts, public safety, and community programs. Examples: silent witness, GAIN programs, arts programs, parks programs, recreation programs. While the vendors do not support these programs for recognition, it would be nice for Phoenix to acknowledge these vendors are providing support where the city of Phoenix either can't or due to budget cuts are no longer able to provide programming. Other information, and this is kind of one bad apple spoils the whole bunch. On-time performance. Comparison of former single vendor versus multiple vendor. The former single vendor is not part of the current contract. I don't even know that they're doing business in the state of Arizona any longer. Unfair to hold a current provider responsible because the former provider did not perform. According to this agenda, the former vendor had 2,398 violations. That was averaged 40 a month. Per Phoenix records, under the current 44-month contract, and this I can only speak to All City Towing here. Performance there had 911 violations out of approximately 60,000 tows. That comes up to about 21 violations per month, half of what the former vendor did, which is a 98.4% on-time record. That's pretty good record. So with that being said, I've made my points. I'm happy to answer any questions, or if you'd like to hear the others and call anyone back up for questions, we're happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you for your time.
Any questions? Randy. Is there Randy out there?
I'm sorry, I do have that DPS model pricing sheet, so I wanted to, if I might, just hand that over so that you guys can take a look at it.
Absolutely, if you can hand it over.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Randy Shipley. I'm with DV Towing. We're one of your 3 current vendors for going on 4 years now. And the only thing I would ask of the council and procurement and the police department to consider going forward with the RFP is this is all about performance. As Chief Yonner mentioned, a few minutes of time sitting on the side of a road for police officers is an eternity. Every one of you have been stuck in traffic waiting because of an accident to get cleared up. 2 or 3 minutes is an eternity when you're in the middle of an intersection. Performance is everything on this contract. It's not about saving $5. It's about getting the streets cleared up, getting the officers safe, getting the tower safe, the citizens safe, everybody else. It's, number 1 priority. So to weight this too much toward pricing and less towards performance should be reconsidered. I mean, this is a performance-based contract. The City of Phoenix contract is massive. It's a huge undertaking. There's very few companies in the state that have the capacity, the financial capability, the equipment, the facilities, et cetera, to do this job. And the ones that can do it and have proved they can do it, they should be weighted accordingly. Someone else can come in and bid it cheap, and like Mr. Maddox mentioned, you get what you pay for. This is an expensive industry. If you take an average, like Ms. Rothschild did, every city publishes their rates. You can take an average of the rates, come up with a fair price that's, a happy medium in the city, that's still a competitive market price, and yet weighted on performance. Again, what the towers can do for the city, because at the end of the day, this is all that matters, is how well we perform for the police department and in turn for the citizens of the city. And again, you don't want to save $5 to Mrs. Smith when you're inconveniencing 3,000 other people because they have to wait 5 more minutes for the tower to show up. I mean, the price is important, but nothing is more important than performance. So thank you for your time.
Can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
We are looking at adding other services to this. What do you think of, should we do that?
As far as, I'm sorry, the roadside services?
Tire changes, jump starts, that sort. Do you get asked about that? Is that something? we
Honestly,
should-
no. AAA, there's a million roadside clubs. Most people's insurance companies cover that if they don't have AAA or, cross country or a million different roadside clubs. From our perspective, we would prefer not to, frankly, have to deal with that. I mean, carrying fuel and jump boxes and getting into a whole different realm of towing rather than, a car broke down in a parking lot to go jumpstart as opposed to an accident or an intersection. That should be the priority for the towers. So from our perspective, we would prefer to leave that in the private sector. Again, if it's
Aren't you the
blocking or
private-
something because of ran out of fuel, well, then it's a police tow. It needs to be towed out of there, not pour gas in their gas tank while they're sitting in the intersection. So we'd prefer just to keep it a towing-only contract, not a roadside service contract.
And then to your other comments, what drives performance in terms of speed and how quickly you can clear the intersection?
Well,
Is it
Phoenix-
how many trucks you have, how much your training you offer, what?
Absolutely. Phoenix is different than literally every other municipality, DPS, MCSO, every other city. Everyone else, the kind of industry standard is 30-minute response time. Phoenix is 20 minutes. And Phoenix also has fines associated with that. So literally, if we're 21 minutes, we get a fine. That's, again, unique to every other city. Well, to do that, we literally have to stage trucks all over our zones. And as you know, Phoenix is huge. And yes, it's broken up into 4 areas, but, our zone alone, goes from basically Black Mountain up by Carefree Highway all the way down to Indian School. It's a massive area. It requires millions of dollars of investment in trucks and personnel and equipment. Tow yards are, the way they're zoned, there's very few areas that allow capacity to have adequately sized tow yards. So to, again, invest the kind of money to be able to store thousands of vehicles for 6-8 months sometimes. I mean, it's a very capital intensive process. But to answer your question, yeah, it just requires a lot of trucks to basically flood the area, but that costs money. I mean, six figures for a tow truck. They're not $20,000 or $30,000 trucks. I mean, they're $120,000 trucks. It takes capital investment to do that, so we have to be able to recoup that investment. And again, at the end of the day, the biggest thing, our goal is to provide the service to the city. But we have to be able to recoup our costs to do that. A lot of smaller companies, again, may come in and bid it less, but they're not going to be able to invest the money to be able to service the city like someone that has more trucks and more equipment and more capability can do.
Wonderful, thank you.
Any other questions? Jeff?
Good morning. My name is Jeffrey Dunn. I'm the general manager of All City Towing, 2031 West 1st Street in Tempe. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak today. I'd be remiss if I didn't start out by saying that I believe that the city's staff has done a wonderful job, not only in the preparation of the information presented here today, but also throughout the last 4 years. We're involved in many procurements throughout the state, and I can tell you without reservation that they do a very, very good job. So my compliments to you. With respect to pricing and the DPS model, the MCSO model, this is not something that's new. Clearly, it's been occurring for the last 10 years. DPS and MCSO certainly do far more tows than the city of Phoenix do. The pricing model that they have come up with is not something that was haphazardly arrived at. They did a full market study. They also looked outside the region in different states. If you were to compare the Phoenix model versus any other large municipality, there are municipalities out there that allow pricing 10 times, 20 times, 30 times what pricing is here in Phoenix. And it's our belief that, to echo what Randy is indicating here, this contract should not be built on price. It just shouldn't, because you are going to get what you pay for. Again, to echo Randy's thoughts, the standard tow truck is $110,000. The big heavy records, they're $500,000. Our company, and I believe Randy's as well, we offer a full cache of benefits: health, dental, accidental death and dismemberment, vision, 401k, paid PTO. We are paying above the standard wage, above the livable wage because of the competition right now in our industry. And when I say industry, I mean transportation. There is a nationwide shortage, well documented throughout the country, of skilled drivers. And in order to compete with Swift, with UPS, with FedEx, with these massive companies, we have to pay higher wages. We have to have 401k plans. We have to have PTO. We believe it's good business to do so. And in order to retain those people, we have to pay those benefits. If we're paying those benefits, we have to be paid accordingly for the services that we're providing. We're showing up between 11 and 14 minutes. To echo what Chief Yonner says, those are phenomenal response times, phenomenal. We're not delivering those just in Phoenix because we're required to do so. We do it in every municipality or state agency or state contract that we have. So I would impress upon the committee and staff to please take into account the cost to provide the service. We could show up in just under 20 minutes for every single call and still be in compliance, but we choose not to do so because that's not responsible. Thank you very much. I'll stand in advance if any questions.
Any questions?
May I? Same question about the other services. Should we include that in the procurement, or it looks like in the DPS model they do offer at a different rate fuel, tires, belts, hoses?
We would prefer not to provide those services for the simple reason of, if
Or maybe
we're-
allow you to provide them, but maybe take it out of the points is one thing that I was considering.
Yeah, providing those services, belts, fuel. If you run out of belts, you've got to restock. If you're restocking supplies, then you're delaying services to the next call. There are private companies such as AAA and other roadside companies that are much better equipped to provide those services.
There seems to be a consensus on that. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Any other questions? Thank you. Ron?
Good morning to the committee and the police department and the city of Phoenix. I'll probably be repetitive on a lot of this stuff that was just said from these other three companies. I would like to talk about the towing price. Number one, the towing price is really, really fictitious on this particular contract we all have. You had three really big companies that were really financially set that bid that price, but when that price was bid 4 years ago, this whole contract or any contract evolves around cars and the price of scrap metal and the price of the auction. Scrap metal at the time we give those low prices was $300 a ton. Today it's $62 a ton. So it has really, really affected our bottom line. Number two, you have 400 points for your pricing. That's really, really high. Your contract, every contract that we have, and we only have commercial contracts for the police departments, are really more based and more weight is put on experience, past performance, your lots, your employees, but mostly your past performance and your present performance. Pricing, anybody will come in and give you a low price to try to get in the door, but you're probably not going to be satisfied with it. What we found out is we have two precincts, and our company, as big as it is, it's really too small, but it's too big for somebody that doesn't have the type of trucks we have. We have 87 trucks, and we keep them busy on police calls. And like Jeff says, we have a whole staff of we have every truck that you can get. This is very expensive to maintain. At those tow prices, it's ridiculous. Phoenix is huge. We have to go from zone to zone. In other words, if we have a wreck in our zone, we got to tow it way up to Jeff's zone at the other end of town. That's over 40 miles. We're doing that for $18. Anybody will tell you that's anybody at all. You can't do that. You can't do that. You're losing money. I mean, this tow should be more or less based on what the actual cost of the tow is. A fixed tow rate, like DPS has done for years, and they go to 25 or 30 different tow companies, and they get averages of what everybody charges. and they get their average, and that's what they get. If you come in like that and you base your contract on good companies that are going to be there and not going to let you down, not going to be an hour late and so forth, it's going to be a lot better for everybody. I don't believe in a single vendor. I don't believe that would be fair, but I think for Phoenix's benefit, everybody's benefit, and the size of the zones, I think you should cut that down to about 2 awards. It would be much easier for bookkeeping. It would be much easier for the police department. It would be much easier for the towers because we could tow them. We're already in zone if you got 2 contracts. I'm kind of concerned about revenue sharing. The Towing Association tells us and several other attorneys that possibly this revenue sharing is not legal. There's Arizona law and federal law that prohibits it. So I would really like a study on that to see if that we're all paying you a third of what we take in, and with the economy the way it is and with these tow prices, it's almost impossible to operate. So I would like that looked into. Other than that, I would like to thank the police department. I would like to thank the City of Phoenix staff and administration. I think we've got along real good. The police officers have been exceptional out at the wreck sites. I don't think we've had any problems that I am aware of. And if you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
I have a question. So Ron, you talked about the price of scrap metal going down from $300 a ton to $60 a ton.
Correct.
How does that affect the industry? I'm not
Well,
for those individuals watching that really don't understand.
Okay, scrap metal is when we did the contract, it was $300 a ton, so the average car is going to weigh about 2 tons, so it's going to be worth about $600 over the scale. Right now, it's going to be worth about $135. We bid that contract, and so did these other fellows that bid it. They bid it on scrap metal, and that's our main business. Our second business is auction, which you folks get a 34% cut on, and it's cut on the gross, not the net. So we can't deduct for anything. We got to make keys. We got to put tires. We got to clean these cars up. We got to repair fenders. We got to do a lot of work. But we don't. You guys get gross. If we put another $300 in the car to get it to auction, you get gross on that. We don't get anything. We don't get paid for keys. We have to make keys for 60% of these cars don't have keys. A key runs anywhere from $35 to $200 to make a key. There's just a lot of expenses that I'm sure you're not familiar with, but it has really, really hurt our bottom line, and there's no way at those prices we can continue to tow for $18 40 miles in Phoenix. It's just not working out.
So Ron, basically, for individuals watching, if your car is abandoned, you either take it to auction, or if it's totaled out, you scrap it. And
Yeah,
that's where
what's happened, now we got to take them to auction with a scrap price, but even at the auction, when we started this contract with the price of cars and scrap metal, the worst piece of junk, the abandoned vehicle that we got in and we shared with you was $400. That's the lowest you sold anything for because you had bidders lined up. Right now, the most you can get is $150 to $175. And we're way in North Phoenix. I've had to end up delivering to the dealers. I got to deliver the cars for free or they won't even buy them anymore. So now I got a free tow. That's been going on for over 2 years. And everything has changed. The format of the contract is great. The pricing is way too high. You've got way too much weight on that. And I think if you look into that, you do. But I think everything else is fine, except I think you should cut it down to 2 awards. It would be much more controlled to, take the 2 best companies with the best histories and the best performance for the police department, and I think you'd be in better shape.
we have one other question, Councilmember Williams.
What percentage of the vehicles that you tow actually end up going to auction or salvage?
To the auction of total that we tow, about 20%.
About 20%. Thank you.
And scrap, that's also scrapped?
We don't scrap anymore. Everything goes to the auction.
Thank you. Vice
Maybe
Mayor?
a question I've asked before on other services. I'm sensing a trend we should not include that in the.
I want absolutely nothing to do with that. I think that would. I think that would hurt. I think that would hurt the police department. It would definitely tie us up when I don't need to be tied up when I could be working an intersection wreck.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Decisive response from the industry.
Connor?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Connor Gleason. I'm the president of the Arizona Professional Towing and Recovery Association. I do not own a company that is currently towing for the city of Phoenix. We are an industry organization that represents 80-plus towing companies in the state. So I'd like to speak from that angle. First off, I'd like to answer the question that you've been asking. If you have AAA, you can still use AAA. So if you put in the contract that a price to do a tire change, jump start, lockout, and the member has AAA, the city's not going to require that you use the city contractor. They're going to allow that person to use their AAA. So even if you have an agreement with your insurance company, we're just going to be doing the services for the people that don't have that prior arrangement. So it's not really going to penalize the membership holders. I'd like to speak, it's been repeated numerous times, pricing is a big, a hot button here. Tow operators are first responders. We're no different than police officers, fire department, EMT, except we're in the private sector. The cost to deliver a tow with new equipment, with skilled operators, with employee benefits for those skilled operators continues to rise. The Department of Public Safety, this is a pamphlet we put together for them. We are working in conjunction with them to determine what the cost of a tow is. We are also working on a model where every even number year the association meets with the Department of Public Safety. We revisit those 5 or 6 points that we've identified and seeing how they fluctuate. So if the cost of fuel, if the cost of equipment, if the cost of labor, if the cost of real estate, all the factors that go into the cost of a tow, if they fluctuate, in even number years we do our data research, and odd number years our contracts adjust. So she had done some research for different rate structures, but the municipalities are realizing how big of a stakeholder the towing industry is in making sure that the streets are cleaned, that the police officers and the motoring public have the least amount of downtime, and they're realizing how important that the towing industry is paid a fair wage for the service that we provide. So I challenge the city of Phoenix to look at this differently and not weigh pricing as the biggest factor. If you have a medical emergency, do you really want the cost to be something that you're worried about? If there's a accident in an intersection, the economic impact of that street being closed, $18 isn't even relevant at that point. If the freeways are shut down, an $18 tow, is that really the most important thing, or is opening the freeway back up? There's a nasty trend right now going on with secondary accidents, which is a second accident caused by the first incident, and there are a lot of injuries, there's a lot of economic impact. So please don't base all of the weight on pricing, and don't make that the most important thing. And in pricing, there's been a little discussion about the auction revenue sharing as an industry, and I think it's bad practice for the city or for a municipality to ask for proceeds back from a private entity. All we're going to have to do is pass that cost on to the first user. So if we're getting $100 to do a tow and now the city wants $50, we basically have to charge the next person $150 in order to recoup that cost. So we ask that you look at it differently and not base so much weight on pricing.
Thank you. Any questions? Councilmember Williams?
I have a question for staff, actually, based on what you just said. When we look at the evaluation criteria, and then he talks about we get a share of any further sales, I guess is what I could simplify it. Why isn't that included somehow? We don't know what that contract says, and you are including things that we aren't considering, and that concerns me.
Council Williams, the pricing is a component of that factor. So the auction split, all those things, the storage fees, et cetera, are part of that pricing component. Now, hearing what we heard today from the towing community, we certainly can look at the evaluation criteria, and if we want to look at the cost of points for pricing, we can certainly look at that.
Yeah, because I think that's very misleading. To me, that means you're going to basically on the base towing and not the entire package that you were talking about. And I have a problem with that, quite frankly. So I think it's very important that you explain exactly what's included in each one of those categories.
Yes, in the RFP document, that is explained, and
But we need to know that
yes, I
before we
understand.
approve this.
Councilmember Pastor.
I have a question about the revenue sharing, because I have heard about this like over a year. And my understanding about the revenue sharing is that there's a statute that has, talks about revenue sharing, and that we're not, I don't know, we're in line. I guess it all depends on the interpretation. So can you explain to me the revenue sharing piece and what the gentleman was speaking about?
Yes, Councilwoman Pastor, is it on now? The revenue sharing portion occurs once the vehicle is left abandoned at the tow yard. We don't take a portion of the tow fees or the storage fees that goes back to the city. It's of the vehicle once it's being disposed of. So there is a state law that says once the vehicle is abandoned, the towing company can apply for title. Once they acquire the title, they auction the vehicle. That's the portion that comes back to the city. That's when it occurs.
Is this a normal practice in all municipalities, or are we just unique?
DPS, I believe they, I can't speak on it because I spoke
Okay.
with a couple of them, so I don't want to try to guess.
Okay.
Maybe if there's somebody from the industry that can answer that?
The Department of Public Safety does not require that the industry share revenue back with the Department of Public Safety.
And could you explain, obviously you would know more about the state law. Can you tell me what the state law?
I don't know the legal version of it. I would not want to speak out of context, but
So-
the one thing to keep in mind here, the way she explained it, if the Phoenix Police Department calls a private towing company, our trucks are dispatched, we clean up the scene, we bring the vehicles to our storage yard or to wherever that person wants it done. If we bring it to our storage yard, we file for the abandoned title, we wait for that whole process, we store that car 30 to 70 days. We get the title to that vehicle. At that point, we have received zero income, and we are this far into the cost of getting to that point. So if we sell that vehicle, like Ron had said with scrap metal, if we turn around and sell that vehicle for $150 and 50% of it or whatever percent of it goes back to the city, we may only be at $75 for the total income for that entire process. So if we are selling the vehicle to recover our costs, and then we're taking the large portion of that and giving that back, that even leaves less for us to have to cover what we just did.
Okay, and I don't know, I think we have two experts, but for staff, what is the total cost in the whole process, or a range of the total cost of that scenario? Do we know?
Total cost for the department or for the tow company?
For all of us involved.
I don't have a pricing model, sorry.
Okay.
And if I could, I'd like to make a suggestion. If the city would like to reach out to the towing association like DPS has done, we would be happy to provide that information. The AZ Department of Administration does the procurement for DPS now, and they came to us. We actually spent a day with them, taking them to towing companies, explaining how the whole process worked, doing equipment demonstrations, and doing all these things for them, and they were much better able to understand the business after that. So if that's something that the city's interested in, they can reach out to APTRA for that.
Councilmember Williams?
I think my question is probably for staff, but I'm not positive. When somebody has to have something towed, do you pay the bill for the towing and then you charge the person? How does this procedure work?
If it is a police-ordered tow, then the vehicle owner is responsible for the towing and the storage fees.
Okay, so they pay directly to the
vendor,
towing?
correct.
Okay. So are you anticipating, you have to pay, why are we making money on this, or are we? I don't get this.
The way that the program is set up, we do cost recovery, and this is on the 30-day impounds. So the statute is very specific that on certain types of impounds, we collect $150. That goes back into the program to fund the program itself, to fund for city staffing in the process.
Okay. How much money annually do we receive? What, and how many positions does this fund? I'm trying to figure out.
We currently have 3 squads in the vehicle impound unit. We have 7 detectives. They are tasked with inspecting the vehicles. They have to per the contract. We have, on those 3 squads, we have 5 admin aides, and then we have 3 admin assistant ones that help oversee the contract.
And they're assigned to the different yards or to the accident scenes?
These are internal, so the detectives will go out, depending on the date when the vehicle was towed, they go out and they inspect the vehicles daily. And then
Okay.
the staff, they assist customers, they assist callers, they issue releases, they answer questions.
So this is the only way you have to fund those? Am I getting that? That you count on this for your budget?
Yes, we count on this contract to fund the program that we run. So
Okay.
salaries, it's cost recovery.
And this is a protection for our taxpayers, I take it? To inspect those cars to make sure that everything's
Well,
on the up and up?
they inspect the vehicles to make sure that when the vehicles are towed in, there's not a fictitious VIN or an altered VIN number. So if it's a stolen vehicle and the officers don't discover it when they're on patrol, our detectives may discover it, thus saving the city some money. Because if we towed a vehicle and we didn't notify the correct owner, per state law, we pay for it.
Does that happen often?
It happens a couple of times a month.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Vice Mayor?
Do others, but we are not the only city that has the auction revenue sharing.
From what I know, in Arizona, you require the most, substantially more than anybody else. There's a few cities that are working on it, and as an association, we're working on researching the legality of that. But we know that the city of Phoenix takes the biggest chunk on the backside. And in the report, there was a number that $2.1 million in fiscal year 15-16. That number was bundled from the $150 administrative fee and the auction revenue. That number should be split apart so that you can see the $150 fee that's paid by the owner of the vehicle, the lien holder, or the insurance company versus the auction proceeds that are given back to the city by the private towing company. That number should be split and looked at.
And then when are you and DPS concluding your study about the cost of towing?
It is ongoing. Every even number year we study. The January 1st of the odd number year we make the adjustment. Over the last 4 years, we've met with them numerous times to make sure.
Have this year's number?
I have the most recent document that we as an industry have put together for them. They're in the process right now of seeking information from all their vendors as far as determining what a fair rate would be for the type of service that we provide.
And so the question I was trying to ask was, when will that be done?
I don't know. The ball's kind of in their court. We've sent the information in. We've given them the tour of the facilities. We've answered every question that they've asked. It's on them now as far as how fast they can process.
Thank you. And then I have a question for staff, if that's okay.
Absolutely. We still have one more card, but after that.
I think it's a quick one. If the streets department needs to tow someone or some other city department, the police department still is the lead?
For a city-owned vehicle, there is a specific contract in place for fleet towing.
If I park in the middle of a construction zone and we have to tow my vehicle, if the streets department has identified the problem, they would call the police department and the police
Correct.
department would.
Yes, that is correct.
Thanks.
Councilmember Pastor?
I have a question about the pricing. What is included in those 400 points?
I believe in that pricing is daily storage fees,
Okay, hang
the
on.
amount to tow each vehicle based on the gross vehicle weight.
Pricing per zone is a factor as part of the RFP. We received a phone call when we reached out to DPS this week. They actually want to get together with us. They are unhappy with their model, and they approached us. They want to do more of a competitive model because they have actually found the people that have been towed can call a private company off contract and get a better rate than the fixed fee that's what they're finding.
Oh, I see.
So they've asked us for a meeting to look at our model.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you. We have Dan.
In the pricing, it includes the revenue sharing?
The auction split,
Okay.
correct.
Okay, got it.
How you doing today, council and staff? My name is Daniel Rush. I'm one of the owners of All City Towing. 5314 East Calais Del Norte is my address at home. I'm here to echo pretty much what you've heard by everybody that comes up here. The pricing is really, from a towing standpoint, an unfair price to put so much weight on. I think you've been explained to several reasons why. I think for us, when we look at municipal towing, it is our core business. That's what we do. We do from municipal towing, like Ron had said, and we look at performance in our businesses. We look at when you get an 11-minute response time from a towing company, you're telling the towing company that you're doing a great job, that you're looking at us and saying, hey, our minimum is 20 minutes. So we're pretty proud of the fact that we as a group are meeting that requirement. I think it's a great reflection on us as an industry. I don't think you ever got that service prior to that. So, to echo what everybody said, pricing is such an unfair way to look at it unless you evaluate it. I think, like it's been recommended, if you take the time to evaluate what it actually costs to send a $120,000 truck to a scene, get it there in 11 minutes, pay for the fuel, pay for the insurance, pay a good fair wage, it's not $18. And I think when this contract, for me as an owner, we're looking at a 5-year or longer situation. When we first bid this, Mr. McClure was right, it was over $300, okay? And to take that revenue away from us, you also took it away from the city, because on the revenue side, sharing from the salvage proceeds, you get half from our company. So you lost half of that also. So it's just a flawed system in general, not just for us, but even for you guys. So we don't believe it should be that way at all, but it is what it is. And so you have lost significant amounts of revenue due to the flaw. What we're asking for is stability. More than anything, I think we're looking to be able to look into the future and provide this service over a 5-year span. So for us, the stability in the pricing is key. It's very important to us to project where our companies are going to be. And so I could pretty much stand up here and echo the rest of it, but I think you guys got a pretty good comprehension of what's kind of going on out there. But we would love to provide the information. We would love to provide it through the Towing Association. I think they have a more overview than just one or two companies. So if there's any questions, I guess.
Any questions? Want to ask your
I catch on eventually. I think there was, did you want to say anything about other services?
I'm sure I would echo. It's
Message
just,
delivered.
to take a $120,000 truck and deliver gas, it's kind of inefficient for us. And the AAAs and stuff are much better at it. So thank you for that, though.
I catch on eventually.
All righty. Any other questions? Questions for staff?
I think I asked.
Councilmember Pastor?
I guess where I need some clarity is really understanding what the total cost is for a tow, and also what the total cost would be to an individual that would have to tow, and understand the big picture as to then where the pricing, the area of pricing. And so that's just where I'm at on this, in the sense of I'm not sure if fixed pricing is really the right piece. I'm also not sure if the way we have it set up is really advantageous right now is the way the industry and the market has changed. And so I need to understand a bigger picture of that. And I don't know if you guys are able to give me that.
Councilwoman Pastor, Mr. Chairman, and I might be speaking out of turn, I'm not a procurement person, but that's why we're here. We still have 6 months more on this contract. The industry has brought forward these issues with pricing, with revenue sharing, the fact that scrap metal tanked, all those things. So that's why we're here to try to figure that out. In the RFP, we can articulate specifically what we want. So it's real hard, in my humble opinion, with coming up with an overall package on kind of the unknown. So, I mean, that's for kind of the competitors to provide their bids as we set the parameters for those bids. So I just wanted to make the point, we're here because of the issues that they're experiencing. We're sensitive to that. There are customers too. Scrap metal has tanked. We tried to renegotiate some of that, and it's time to take all these things into consideration and go forward with an RFP process to do it the right way. So that's kind of in a nutshell where we're at. And if Jim or Denise want to kind of chime in.
Yes, Councilwoman. As Chief mentioned, in 2012, when this procurement went out on the street, it was very important to the council that the citizens not be hit with a lot of cost for towing. And that was the structure that was bid. That's the current contract. As the Chief mentioned, when the option years came into effect, the police department and I sat down with the tow companies and we renegotiated. We understood that the scrap market tanked. And I personally renegotiated every one of those contracts with these tow providers to give them some relief on that, knowing full well that we were coming back before you to having to issue a new RFP process. Now, as was mentioned, I know the tow providers are concerned about pricing. It is a complete package. There is the auction split, there is the storage fees, there is all those things that are part of that component. And in the evaluation criteria in the RFP, that is very clear how that's evaluated and laid out. As far as other services go, we had looked into that. I know that it is provided at times. Citizens request it. Certainly have no problem removing that category and adding some more weight to performance or some of those other things.
That makes sense.
Yes, I think that makes sense. So.
Mr. Chair, members of the subcommittee, just to clarify this, when we go out with this proposal or the solicitation, the pricing component, there'll be a sheet for them to fill out. And so the vendors will be telling us how much, we have this in categories, basically a price for a common tow, a daily storage price, and also a percentage for auctions. I'm getting old, my glasses aren't working anymore, disposals and direct sales. So this is part of the pricing sheet that each of them will fill out for each zone. And that way we can gather the information to make a award or award the points.
So my concern is that I don't think we really did a market study or a feasible study out there to see where the industry is, because we're getting mixed messages up here. When we talk about how much a tow actually costs, what's our portion, how much does the industry actually get? We don't have clear answers on that. My thing is, if we approve this and we're going by customer service and the best value for the city, are we just going on pricing as the best value? Are we going on customer service and performance? So it looks like the state and the county are really based more on performance, and they took the pricing out by not having that be the competition. I rather have competition of performing the best service out there. I mean, we're at 11 minutes. That's great. I mean, most cities I heard out there were a half an hour, right? And even if we can get that down even more so, that would be great. So I like to see the pricing not being the top point getter and adjusting that somehow and working more on the performance and the expertise and if you're capable to actually perform those 4 zones, or if it's, and I agree we should continue having those 4 zones. I believe it needs to be more than one tow company out there handling all 4 zones. If it's 2 or 3, I don't have a problem with that. But I just can't go with Price being the number one point getter at this time. Councilmember Williams and then Pastor.
Oh, sorry, Councilwoman.
I remember this in 12, I believe, coming through because there was a big concern, and I think we had some citizens down here complaining about the price and the charge they were experiencing. So we did make pricing the number one goal. I'm a firm believer in the 4 zones. I think that's very important, and it really offers competition. And I was very glad to hear you would renegotiate some of these contracts. I think we're probably facing the same thing in this recommendation, and the fact that their price depends on the economy, and that could significantly change like it did since 12, when scrap metal took a dump and all the others that they relied upon to supplement their expenses. So, I mean, I'm more than willing to go forward with this with the 4 districts, one or all. You can bid on all 4 if that's what you so desire. And changing the point structure. I think that Councilman Nowakowski is very important. I think the experience and performance and the capacity are, to me, just as important as the pricing. We want somebody that can deliver the short-term response time. So and no offense to the vice mayor, but I think I eliminate the other services and I would change the pricing to $350, $300, and $350 and eliminate other services, which bring you back to $1,000. And I would make that motion.
What was that again?
Second.
$350, $300, $350.
350, 300, keeping.
Taking out the other services.
And taking out the other services. Because I know Highway Patrol has a little truck I see on the freeway quite frequently to motorist assist or something, and I know that's manned by volunteers. And most people have some type of other service via their insurance, so, or their credit card or something.
Alrighty, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion on that motion or comments? The only comment I would have is, do we actually have a point to talk about a living wage in there and workers' benefits and all that? Because if you're a towing company, you come in, you're not providing a living wage or you're not providing a benefits to your employee, then I think that should be a part somehow. We should be able to judge that. If we're going to get a towing company that's coming in and not providing a just wage or a living wage or benefits to their employee, then the pricing will be lower. I mean, because you don't have to add that in there. So I'm just wondering.
Mr. Chairman, you're exactly right. As a matter of fact, part of the city law template for standard terms and conditions and special terms and conditions for equal pay, those type of things are included in the templates.
It's good to know.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments? With that, we'll take a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? It passes. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Um,
I'd like to make sure we have clarity. So are you expecting us to return to you at any point? Or if we make these changes, we're free to go execute the RFP process?
That's what I
We're
thought.
free to go.
I think you're
We're
free to
free to
go.
go.
Yeah.
Okay.
And hearing the conversation on priorities.
And meeting with the industry.
Yeah.
Okay.
Unless you want to come back, I mean, I'd be more than glad to have.
I just want to make sure we.
Alrighty. We're at any future agenda items?
Oh. Sorry, can't grab one.
Future agenda items.
Hey, did they do a domestic violence court?
No, not yet. So if we can do, if we can add domestic violence court update?
Or just specialty court, whatever.
Anything else? With that, I'd like to adjourn this meeting, but at the same time, I would like to ask if Chief Yonner and Chief Williams come up here, they get recognized.
My husband does that for years.
We just want to just welcome Chief Williams and also thank our police chief, Joe Yonner, for everything he's done, and any comments from my colleagues, because seeing this is actually the last meeting with us. We'll break out with the box of Kleenex in a little bit. We'll start with the Vice Mayor.
Wonderful. Just want to thank you for your service to our city, which is not done yet. We in no way are saying that, but this is our last, I think, Public Safety Subcommittee. So thank you for your service. It's been, you've had a lot of challenges in your tenure, and thank you for stepping up for the big things and the little things. Welcome to Chief Williams.
So Chief Yonner, thank you so much for everything you've done, but for really in the midst of, you provided clarity in the midst of where there was some storm. And you also made sure that our community was safe and were heard, which is very important to not only the city, but the city council, but also our community in the sense of building trust. And it's very important to me that that piece continues, that we understand what is our community is facing and how they interpret things and how it's perceived. And so I want to thank you for your leadership in that, because you had some very, in your tenure, the last year and a half, there were some trying moments where we were like, okay, it's going to be his leadership that leads us through, and you did it with grace and great clarity, and also protecting not only our city, but also your men and women that serve the city. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I've had the privilege of knowing both of you for a long time. And do you notice, right, she's somber and he's smiling? But first, Chief Yonner, you have done an outstanding job. You have suffered with us, through other people's leadership that was not necessarily real positive for the entire police force. You made it possible for us to survive during that time, and then stepped up to the plate and really reclaimed the citizenship respect. And I think that is a testament to your professionalism, your honesty, and your administrative skills. And I just thank you very, very much for doing that. Now moving to Jerry. I've known Jerry for a very long time too, and I'm very proud that you are going to be our new chief. You were exceptional when you were here before. Was sad to see you leave, and couldn't be more excited and pleasure that you're going to be back with us. I know he's got big footsteps, but you've got big feet. So I know that. So welcome, and I'm delighted that you're going to be doing this.
So Jerry, I'm sorry, I was deeply in conversation with obviously Chief Yonner. And so Jerry, welcome. Obviously, welcome back. It's home for you. As you have, you and I have actually grown up the ranks together. You've watched me, and we're pretty close in age. So we have worked in our communities for many years. And so welcome back, looking for your great leadership. And I'm excited to see how we move forward. So welcome.
Chief, on behalf of this committee, I just really want to thank you. Anytime we needed you to step up, you stepped up. As a chief, you've really brought the men and women in uniform together during hard times. You brought up the morale of our staff, and especially now with everything that's going on throughout the country, the morale of our men and women are up there, and I think it's the leadership that we have. It's your involvement, not only within the police, but also in our community, calming things down. I think that we have such a great lines of communication within our community leaders that when you have marches, they're peaceful. and we communicate. We have an open line of communication. We have those advisory boards that you personally attend and you listen. And it's not just a stamp, a board that's just stamping things through. It's actually you're listening and you're taking their opinions into consideration. So I just really want to thank you for your leadership. We're going to miss you. And at the same time, having Chief Williams come in and you all working together as assistant chiefs really shows the type of leadership that we have here in the city of Phoenix, how we have great training, how we have individuals that come up from the bottom of the ranks all the way to becoming a police chief. And that talks a lot about our department. It talks a lot about the men and women in uniform. And it shows that you could one day be the chief of police in the city of Phoenix if you're walking out there on the beat. So I just really want to thank the leadership of both of you and how you're working hand in hand right now to pass on that leadership. I think it's going to be seamless. I believe that that community involvement, Jerry's going to pick that up and run with it. And I think it's going to be seamless, the passing on the baton. So I just really want to thank you. One thing, Jerry, I do want to ask you is that last time we asked the chief and he didn't want to answer this, individuals were asking, what does a 918 mean? When there's a call 918, what does that mean?
Okay, so thank you for that, Chairman Nowakowski. That's someone with some mental health issues. So
Okay.
That's pretty much how I would surmise that. So.
All righty. So if you were married on 918, what would you consider that?
That's the joke. That's
Chief
bringing that
Yonner,
up,
would you like to
Councilman.
answer that?
First of all, Mr. Chairman, members of the subcommittee, I'm very humbled by your comments. I always say it's not about me. I mean, it's about the men and women of the Phoenix Police Department, and they do a great job. I just happen to be lucky enough to be their chief for a couple years on a couple different occasions, and I've certainly enjoyed that. We have a great police department, and I think sometimes I know that I lose sight of it because we're always trying to do better. We're always trying to be a little bit better and not make mistakes. It's a very complex job right now. The eyes of the world are on you every call, and we do a great job as a police department, and we do it because of the support of our council and our city management. How many times have we been to public safety? I mean, we're coming here with issues that you need to weigh in on so that we can have a betterment of our community, so we can provide the service that our community wants. So I thank you for the comments, and I just want to recognize all the police officers that are out there right now answering calls and trying to keep our community safe. So thank you all. It's been a pleasure. This is the last one, and again, I can't emphasize enough, the support of the council and city management for your police department is huge. And we appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
I saw that. Yeah, you didn't answer.
So just in follow-up to Joe, he's been amazing. So Joe and I have been friends and colleagues for eons, almost it seems. And so when Joe says, and you all make the statements and recommendations about community engagement, about context, about making sure we're transparent, and all those things that you've mentioned, please know that I will continue what's been started. And you are correct, Councilman Nowakowski, in the fact that the baton holding and baton sharing and baton passing, Mr. Dohoney has made sure that this is very seamless. So I do want to commend him for his vision in having this shadowing process and program. So I'm excited. I'm looking forward to working with everyone in the city, the men and women who wear uniforms and those who support us in that. So I'm blessed and fortunate. So thank you.
No, thank you. And Mr. Mahoney, if it's possible, look into Chief Yonner's 5th star, how we can do that. I think that my colleagues and this committee would really like to see him leave with the 5th star. If you can look into that for us.
Yes, sir, and I think Crown Royal is also something needs to be on the agenda.